My three sisters showed up to my wedding in floor-length white dresses. One even wore a veil. When I asked them why, they laughed and said, "Well, it's not like you're the only bride here. I just walked down the aisle. That was 9 months ago." This morning, one of them was crying outside the courthouse in her pajamas. In my culture, there is an unspoken competition for which daughter can get married first. I still remember when my oldest sister Jasmine brought home her first boyfriend. I was 13 at the time, and she was 17. They were watching a movie on the couch together when Jasmine went upstairs to use the bathroom. Practically the second she left, my second oldest sister, I have 3 sisters, Layla plopped down right beside him. Their arms were literally touching. "Oh wow, your hair is so curly," she remarked, twirling his hair with her finger. At the time, I thought she was just being friendly, but suddenly her legs were draped across his and their faces were inches apart. Luckily, Jasmine came back before anything happened and they broke up. That was my sneak peek into what dating would be like in my family. So when I got my first boyfriend Daniel at 18, it wasn't until he proposed to me at 21 that I finally made the announcement. My parents jumped up and started clapping for me. My dad was practically crying tears of joy, especially when I told them he was from the same culture as us. As I looked over to my sisters, I expected to see them getting ready to fight me, but instead, there was a smile on each of their faces. "We are so happy for you," Jasmine shouted. Looking back, I should have known it was a facade, but my heart was so filled with love that I couldn't think about anything else. The months leading up to my wedding were beautiful. Daniel started taking lessons 3 days a week to learn my family's dialect and surprise them with a toast at the wedding. And when I asked him for input on the little things, like flower types or napkin colors, he actually gave it. I knew we were meant to be. But the real test came on our wedding day. I sent my wedding dress to all of my friends and family members, including my sisters. I'm still not sure why, maybe because I was a little self-conscious, or maybe I just wanted to make sure my wedding was perfect. But either way, they all loved it and my phone was flooded with compliments. So in the bridal suite, everyone was twirling me around, telling me how beautiful I was. But there was just one thing missing. None of my sisters had turned up. There was this sadness in my heart that I couldn't seem to shake. Like, couldn't they have put their competitiveness aside for one day? For me? I knew if I thought about it for any longer, I'd start crying. So I pushed it to the back of my head and just focused on walking down the aisle. Daniel was about to say "I do" when the church door opened. It was my 3 sisters. The entire audience turned around and gasped, because not only did they show up late, but they were all wearing white dresses, floor length. Jasmine even had a veil, and all 3 of them had a smirk plastered on their faces. But Daniel just acted like nothing had happened. "I do," he yelled, and it made me smile. The officiator stood there frozen, but after some nudging from Daniel, he continued too. "I do," I screamed back. And despite everything, when we kissed, it felt like fireworks were going off. I swear I was on cloud 9. But at the banquet, during my speech, I didn't let them get away with it. I was going to throw my bouquet, but I'm scared they'll all tackle me at once. This got a few laughs, and I even saw Layla crack a smile. My other 2 sisters just sat there, furious, especially when Daniel started the speech in our dialect. Meanwhile, my dad was smiling so hard I thought his cheekbones were about to melt off his face. I knew they wanted to ruin me. But why would I be upset just because some girls that I grew up with were jealous of my relationship? Lol. Anyway, the rest of the wedding went even better than according to plan, and I thought the worst was behind us. But my sisters weren't letting it go, because not only did I win their competition, I also didn't let them ruin my wedding. And to them, that was a betrayal. Something they weren't willing to let go without a fight. But they didn't know I was ready to fight back. And by the time they realized, it was already too late. But for a while, it was easy to forget about, because we left for our honeymoon a few days later and spent a beautiful 2 weeks in Greece. But when we returned home to our new apartment, reality came crashing back. I had 37 missed calls from my parents and sisters, plus dozens of text messages. Apparently, my sisters had been telling everyone who would listen that I had betrayed the family by getting married first, and then humiliating them at my wedding with my bouquet comment. Can you believe this? I showed Daniel my phone. They show up to our wedding in white dresses, and somehow I'm the villain? Daniel shook his head. "Your sisters have issues, but don't worry, we're a team now." I decided to call my mom to get her take on the situation. She sounded tired. "Your sisters are very upset, Aisha. Maybe you should apologize for the comment you made." "Apologize? Mom, they wore white to my wedding. That's like the universal sign of trying to upstage a bride." My mom sighed. I know, but you know how they are. Can't you just smooth things over, for the sake of family peace?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My entire life, I'd watched my parents let my sisters get away with their competitive behavior. Now they wanted me to apologize for standing up for myself? I told my mom I'd think about it and hung up. The next day, I received an invitation to Jasmine's engagement party. The date on the invitation showed it was happening in 2 weeks. This was news to me. I didn't even know she was seeing anyone seriously. When I called my mom to ask about it, she casually mentioned that Jasmine had been dating this guy named Omar for about 3 months. 3 months? And they're already engaged? I asked in disbelief. "Well, you know how these things go," my mom said vaguely. I did know. Jasmine was trying to minimize my victory by getting married as quickly as possible after me. Classic. I told my mom we'd be there, determined to be the bigger person. The evening of Jasmine's engagement party, Daniel and I dressed nicely and arrived at my parents' house with a gift. As soon as we walked in, I could feel all eyes on us. My sisters were huddled together in a corner, whispering. Jasmine's fiancé Omar looked nice enough, if a bit overwhelmed. He was standing awkwardly by the drink table, not really talking to anyone. I nudged Daniel. "Let's go say hi to Omar. I bet my sisters haven't even introduced him to half the family." We walked over, and I introduced myself. "Hi, I'm Aisha, Jasmine's youngest sister. This is my husband Daniel." Omar seemed relieved to have someone to talk to. "Nice to meet you both. I've heard a lot about you." I bet he had. We chatted for a few minutes, and I could see Jasmine watching us from across the room, her expression darkening. When she finally came over, she practically yanked Omar away, saying they needed to greet some new arrivals. The party continued, and everything seemed fine on the surface, until the toast. Jasmine's best friend clinked her glass and announced it was time for speeches. After a few standard congratulatory words, Jasmine stood up. Thank you all for coming to celebrate our engagement, she began sweetly. Omar and I are so excited to be planning our wedding. And don't worry, unlike some recent weddings in the family, ours will be a respectful, traditional affair where the focus stays where it belongs, on the bride and groom. My jaw dropped. She was seriously using her engagement toast to take a shot at me. I felt Daniel tense beside me. We've already booked the venue for next month, Jasmine continued. We didn't see any reason to wait years and years like others might. When you know, you know. I took a deep breath and plastered on a smile. I wasn't going to let her bait me into a scene. But as the evening wore on, it became clear that this was just the beginning. My sisters weren't just jealous. They were declaring war. And if they wanted a war, they were going to get one. Because they didn't know that I'd been preparing for this my entire life. I'd watched their tactics, learned their weaknesses, and unlike them, I had something they didn't. A partner who had my back 100%. After Jasmine's engagement party, things escalated quickly. The three sisters started a coordinated campaign against me that was honestly impressive in its pettiness. First came the social media attack. Jasmine posted a throwback photo of herself in a white dress with the caption, "Some of us don't need to worry about being upstaged because we're secure in ourselves. Real bride talk or no shade." Subtle, right? Meanwhile, Layla somehow got hold of my wedding photos before I could post them and started commenting on every single one with backhanded compliments. "Your dress looks so much better in these professional photos than it did in real life." Or, "The lighting really helps hide how stressed you looked." I blocked her after the fifth comment, which only fueled the fire. Maya, always the quiet but deadly one, went straight for my in-laws. She found Daniel's mom on Facebook and sent her messages about how concerned she was about our rushed marriage and how I had a history of impulsive decisions. Thankfully, my mother-in-law showed me the messages right away and asked if everything was okay. "Your sisters sound intense," she said with a concerned look. I explained our family dynamics, and she gave me a hug. "Well, you're part of our family now too, and we don't play those games." I cried a little after that conversation. It was nice having someone firmly in my corner besides Daniel. The next attack came when Jasmine accidentally scheduled her bridal shower on the same day as Daniel's birthday. I had been planning a surprise party for weeks, and had already sent out invitations to our friends. When I confronted Jasmine about it, she acted completely innocent. "Oh, was that Daniel's birthday? I totally forgot. But you understand, right? Wedding planning is so hectic, and this was the only day the venue had available." She batted her eyelashes at me like we were 12 again. I knew for a fact she was lying because Maya had commented on my calendar planning app, where I'd marked Daniel's birthday with about 50 heart emojis. I decided to split the day. We'd go to her bridal shower in the afternoon and have Daniel's party in the evening. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of forcing me to choose. The bridal shower was exactly what you'd expect. Jasmine acted like a princess, opening extravagant gifts while making passive-aggressive comments about how her wedding would be so much more traditional than mine. The kicker came when she opened my gift. A beautiful handmade ceramic serving platter I'd special ordered from an artist who incorporated patterns from our cultural heritage. "Oh, how crafty," she said with a tight smile. "I'll be sure to use it when we have casual gatherings." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. That platter cost more than her entire tacky bridal shower setup, but whatever. At Daniel's birthday party that evening, I was still fuming about the platter comment when our doorbell rang. I opened it to find Omar standing there looking uncomfortable. "Hey, is this a bad time?" he asked, shifting his weight from foot to foot. I invited him in, confused but curious. He declined a beer and sat stiffly on our couch. "I wanted to talk to you about Jasmine," he said after some awkward small talk. "She's been different lately, obsessed with this wedding. Last week I suggested we postpone it until next year so we could save more money, and she completely lost it. Started crying about how she couldn't let you win." He made air quotes around win. "Win what?" I asked, playing dumb. "That's what I said." Omar threw up his hands. "She talked about this competition between you sisters that I didn't understand. Then she made me promise we'd get married within 6 weeks or she'd find someone who would." I felt a twinge of sympathy for Omar. He seemed like a nice guy caught in my sister's crazy web. I explained our family's weird marriage competition without sugarcoating Jasmine's behavior. He listened intently, occasionally nodding. "That explains a lot," he said when I finished. "I really do love Jasmine, but this side of her scares me a little." I suggested he talk to her honestly about his concerns. He thanked me and left, looking slightly less stressed. I hoped for his sake he'd either put his foot down or run far away. 2 days later, I discovered Omar had chosen option 2. Jasmine called me at 2 a.m., sobbing hysterically. At first, I couldn't understand what she was saying through the tears, but eventually I pieced together that Omar had broken off their engagement. "He said I'm too focused on competing with you instead of building a life with him," she wailed. "This is all your fault. You talked to him at your stupid husband's birthday party." I didn't deny it. All I did was explain our family dynamic when he asked Jasmine if hearing the truth about your behavior scared him off. "That's on you." She hung up on me. I went back to sleep feeling a strange mix of guilt and satisfaction. The next morning, Daniel and I woke up to the sound of glass breaking. We rushed to our living room to find a brick had been thrown through our window. Taped to it was a note that said, "Home Wrecker," in what was clearly Jasmine's handwriting. "That's it," Daniel said, picking up glass shards carefully. "We're calling the police." I hesitated. "They're my sisters. I don't want to get them in trouble." "Aisha, they just committed property damage. This is crossing a line." He was right, but I still couldn't bring myself to file a report. Instead, I called my parents and told them what happened. My dad was furious, not at Jasmine, but at me. "Why would you interfere in your sister's engagement?" he demanded. "Family comes first, Aisha." I was speechless. "Dad, she threw a brick through my window. How is that putting family first? She's heartbroken. You should apologize to her." I hung up on him. something I'd never done before. Then I blocked all my sister's numbers and social media accounts. If they wanted to act like children, fine, but I wasn't going to engage anymore. For about 2 weeks, everything was quiet. Daniel and I repaired our window, went to work, and tried to enjoy our newlywed life. I started to hope that maybe they'd moved on. Then I got fired from my job. My boss called me into her office on a Friday afternoon and slid a stack of papers across her desk. Can you explain these, Aisha? They were screenshots of emails supposedly sent from my work account to our biggest client, bad-mouthing their products and revealing confidential pricing information from our competitors. I was horrified. I didn't send these. Someone must have hacked my account. My boss gave me a sad look. The IT department traced the IP address. These came from your home network during your lunch breaks. My blood ran cold. I'd been working from home 3 days a week, and our Wi-Fi password was embarrassingly simple: Daniel's name and my birth year. Any of my sisters could have guessed it. Despite my protests and Daniel's insistence that I'd been with him during some of those lunch breaks, the company couldn't risk keeping me. I was escorted out with my personal belongings in a cardboard box like a cliché. In the parking lot, I broke down crying. Daniel came to pick me up, and I showed him the emails. This has Layla written all over it, I said between sobs. She majored in computer science. She'd know how to do this. Daniel was furious. This isn't a stupid prank anymore. This is sabotage. They're trying to ruin your life because you got married first? That's insane. I know. I wiped my eyes. I need to confront them. Not alone, Daniel insisted. I'm coming with you. We drove straight to my parents' house, where I knew at least Layla would be staying since she'd recently moved back home. When we arrived, all 3 of my sisters were there, along with my parents. They looked surprised to see us. What's wrong? My mom asked, taking in my tear-stained face. I threw the stack of emails onto the coffee table. I just got fired because someone hacked my work account and sent these to our biggest client. Care to explain, Layla? Layla's eyes widened. Why are you accusing me? Because you're the only one with the technical skills to pull this off. I was shouting now, all my pent-up anger finally boiling over. First the white dresses at my wedding, then the social media harassment, then the brick through our window, and now this? You've gone too far. My parents looked confused. What brick? My mom asked. The one Jasmine threw through our window 2 weeks ago after Omar broke up with her, Daniel explained, his voice tight with anger. Jasmine jumped up. I did no such thing. I was at Mom and Dad's that whole night. I turned to my parents. Is that true? They both nodded. She was very upset about Omar, my dad said. We stayed up watching movies until dawn. I felt like the floor was shifting under me. If Jasmine didn't throw the brick, then who did? And these emails? I looked more closely at them, seeing details I'd missed before. The writing style didn't actually sound like Layla. It was more formal, more like, I looked up at Maya, who had been suspiciously quiet this whole time. She met my gaze with a small, almost imperceptible smirk. It was you, I said quietly. You did all of this. Maya laughed, a cold sound that sent chills down my spine. Prove it. My parents looked between us, clearly lost. Maya wouldn't do something like that, my mom said uncertainly. Actually, Layla spoke up, she might. Remember when Jasmine was applying to colleges and suddenly all her application essays got deleted from her laptop? Maya was helping her with them. Jasmine gasped. That was you? I had to rewrite everything in 2 days. Maya rolled her eyes. Oh, please. Like you both haven't done worse to each other. At least I'm honest about wanting to win. Win what? My dad asked, growing frustrated. What is this competition you girls keep talking about? All 4 of us went quiet. We'd never actually discussed the marriage competition openly with our parents. It had always been this unspoken thing between us sisters. The competition to get married first, I finally explained. We've all been competing since we were teenagers. My mom looked genuinely confused. What are you talking about? Why would you think we wanted you to compete over that? Because you always favored whoever was closest to getting married, Jasmine said. When I brought home my first boyfriend, you made his favorite dessert and asked when he'd propose. He was a nice boy. I was being polite, my mom protested. When Aisha announced her engagement, Dad literally cried with happiness, Layla pointed out. My dad looked embarrassed. I was happy because she looked happy, and because she'd found someone from our culture who clearly respected her. I would have been just as happy for any of you. That's not true, Maya said bitterly. When I was dating Raj last year and mentioned we were talking about marriage, you said I was too young. You were 20 and had known him for 3 weeks, Dad exclaimed. That's not the same thing at all. As my parents continued defending themselves, I noticed something strange. Layla was texting someone rapidly, looking increasingly panicked. When she saw me watching, she quickly put her phone away. Who are you texting? I asked suspiciously. No one, she said too quickly. Daniel, who had been standing behind me, suddenly grabbed my arm. Aisha, I just got an email alert. Someone's trying to access our bank account. I lunged for Layla's phone. She tried to keep it away, but I managed to grab it. The screen showed a text conversation with someone named Rick, with what looked like our bank account number and routing information. What the hell, Layla? I shouted, holding up her phone. You're trying to steal our money now? The room erupted into chaos. Layla tried to claim Rick was her friend who needed financial advice. My parents started yelling at all of us for behaving like criminals. Jasmine burst into tears, saying this was all my fault for getting married first. Maya just sat back with that same smirk, watching the mayhem she'd helped create. Daniel stood up and whistled loudly, making everyone stop. Enough. This is insane. Aisha and I are leaving, and we're changing all our passwords, accounts, and possibly our phone numbers. If any of you come near our home again, we will file a police report. He took my hand and pulled me toward the door. I was too shocked to resist. As we left, I heard my mother crying and my father trying to calm everyone down. In the car, I finally broke down completely. What is wrong with them? Why would they do all this? Daniel drove silently for a few minutes before answering. I don't think this is about marriage anymore, Aisha. This seems deeper. Like they can't stand seeing you happy or successful. But why? I sobbed. What did I ever do to them? Nothing. And maybe that's the problem. You didn't play their games, you found happiness your own way, and they can't stand it. When we got home, we spent the next several hours changing every password, account number, and security question we had. Daniel called a security company about installing cameras around our house. I called my job's HR department to explain the situation, but they couldn't promise anything beyond looking into it. That night, I could barely sleep. Every noise made me jump. Around 3 a.m., I got up to get some water and noticed a car parked across the street that looked like Maya's. I woke Daniel, and we watched from behind the curtains as someone, I couldn't tell which sister, took photos of our house. That's it, Daniel said grimly. First thing tomorrow, we're getting a restraining order. The next morning, we went to the courthouse to file for temporary restraining orders against all 3 of my sisters. The clerk looked dubious as I explained the situation, but the emails from work and the brick incident were enough to get the process started. We'd have to attend a hearing in a few weeks for a permanent order. As we were leaving the courthouse, my phone rang with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered it. Aisha, it's Omar. I put the phone on speaker so Daniel could hear. Omar? How did you get my number? Your mom gave it to me. Listen, I need to warn you. Your sisters are planning something big. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? After I broke up with Jasmine, she kept calling me, begging to get back together. I finally agreed to meet her for coffee yesterday. She was different, calm, said she understood why I ended things and wanted to be friends. That doesn't sound like Jasmine, I said suspiciously. Exactly. Then she started asking weird questions about you and Daniel, where you work, what your schedule is like, if you ever mentioned going out of town soon. I played dumb, but it felt wrong. When I was leaving, I overheard her on the phone with someone, I think it was Maya, saying Operation Payback is a go for Friday. Today was Wednesday. Did they say what they're planning? No, but they mentioned something about your apartment and all 3 of them being involved. I thought you should know. I thanked Omar for the warning and hung up. Daniel and I looked at each other, both thinking the same thing. We couldn't go home. We'll get a hotel room, Daniel decided, just until after Friday. Then we'll figure out our next move. We checked into a hotel under Daniel's parents' name, just in case my sisters somehow tracked us down. I called in sick to my new temporary job, and Daniel worked remotely. We were essentially hiding, and I hated it. We can't live like this, I told Daniel on Thursday night. We need to end this once and for all. How? He asked reasonably. They're not listening to reason. I thought for a moment. We need to catch them in the act. Whatever they're planning for tomorrow, we need to be ready. We came up with a plan. First, Daniel called his friend Robert, who worked in security, to borrow some equipment. Then we announced loudly on all our social media accounts that we were going to a concert Friday night and wouldn't be home until late. We even bought tickets online to make it convincing. Friday evening, we parked a few blocks from our apartment and walked back cautiously. Robert had helped us set up hidden cameras inside our apartment that morning, connected to a live stream we could watch from Daniel's laptop. We stationed ourselves in a coffee shop across the street with a clear view of our front door. Around 8 p.m., a car pulled up in front of our building. All 3 of my sisters got out, looking around suspiciously before heading inside. They had a key, probably a copy they'd made when visiting us previously. We watched on the laptop as they entered our apartment. Jasmine was carrying a large bag, which she immediately opened to reveal several bottles of bleach, scissors, and what looked like spray paint. Are they seriously going to destroy our stuff? I whispered, horrified. Layla pulled out her phone and appeared to be looking for something. According to Find My Phone, they're definitely at the concert, she said. We have at least 3 hours. Maya started in the bedroom, opening our closet and pulling out clothes. She began cutting up Daniel's suits and my dresses with the scissors, a gleeful expression on her face. That's my wedding dress, I gasped as she held up the white gown I'd preserved so carefully. Jasmine took the bleach to our bathroom, pouring it over our towels and toiletries. Layla went to work on our electronics, apparently trying to hack into our laptop. I'd seen enough. I called the police, explained the situation, and told them we had video evidence of a break-in in progress. Then Daniel and I raced across the street. We didn't confront them directly. The police had advised against that. But we waited outside our door until we heard sirens. The look on my sisters' faces when the police officers escorted them out in handcuffs was something I'll never forget. A mix of shock, anger, and, finally, shame. They hadn't expected to get caught, and they certainly hadn't expected consequences. You set us up, Jasmine accused as she was led past me. You broke into our home to destroy our belongings, I replied calmly. What did you expect would happen? The police took our statements and the video evidence. My sisters were taken to the station and charged with breaking and entering, vandalism, and destruction of property. They were released on bail the next day, but the damage was done. They now had criminal charges hanging over them, and the restraining order was practically guaranteed. My parents called me, devastated by what had happened. They'd had no idea how far my sisters were willing to go. We never meant to create this competition between you girls, my mom said tearfully. We just wanted you all to find happiness. I know, Mom, and I did know. My parents weren't perfect, but they hadn't intentionally fostered this toxic rivalry. That had been something my sisters and I created and fed over the years. The aftermath was messy. My sisters were ordered to pay for the damages to our apartment and were given community service. The restraining orders were granted, keeping them at least 500 feet away from us, our home, and our workplaces. My former company investigated the email hacking and eventually cleared my name, though they didn't offer my job back. Most importantly, the experience forced a painful but necessary family reckoning. My parents finally acknowledged the unhealthy unhealthy dynamics they'd allowed to develop. They insisted on family therapy, separate from me at first due to the restraining orders, to address the deep-seated issues between my sisters. About 6 months after the break-in incident, my mom called to ask if I would consider meeting with Jasmine. She had apparently been making real progress in therapy and wanted to apologize in person. I don't know, Mom, I said hesitantly. A lot of damage has been done. I understand. But she's really trying, Aisha. We all are. I discussed it with Daniel, who was understandably wary. I'll go with you, he offered. Somewhere public, with witnesses. We arranged to meet Jasmine at a cafe downtown. When she arrived, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked smaller somehow, less confident than the sister who had tormented me for years. Thank you for meeting me, she said, sitting down across from us. She looked at Daniel. Both of you. I nodded stiffly, waiting. I've been seeing a therapist, Jasmine began. Turns out I have some serious issues with competition and validation. I've been defining my worth by beating others, especially you, Aisha, for so long that I didn't know who I was without that framework. That doesn't excuse what you did, Daniel said firmly. No, it doesn't, Jasmine agreed. Nothing excuses it. I'm truly sorry for everything. The wedding dresses, the harassment, the break-in. I was so consumed with jealousy that I became someone I don't recognize or like. I studied her face looking for signs of deception, but all I saw was exhaustion and regret. What about Layla and Maya? I asked. Jasmine sighed. Maya's still angry, still blaming you. Layla is somewhere in the middle. She knows we were wrong but isn't ready to admit it yet. They didn't want me to meet with you. And yet here you are. I need to fix what I can, even if they're not ready. We talked for another hour. It wasn't exactly a reconciliation, but it was a start. Jasmine didn't ask me to drop the restraining order or the charges, which impressed me. She seemed genuinely focused on her own healing rather than escaping consequences. As we were leaving, Jasmine handed me an envelope. It's not much, but I want you to have this. Inside was a check for her share of the damages to our apartment and a gift certificate for a weekend getaway at a nice hotel. For you and Daniel, she explained, to make up for some of the stress we caused. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded and put the envelope in my purse. Daniel and I walked to our car in silence. What do you think? He finally asked as we drove home. I think she might actually be sorry, I said slowly. But I'm not ready to forgive her yet, and I'm definitely not ready to let any of them back into our lives. Daniel reached over and squeezed my hand. That's fair. This is a marathon, not a sprint. That conversation with Jasmine left me with mixed feelings. On one hand, I wanted to believe she was genuinely sorry. On the other hand, my sisters had proven they were master manipulators. I couldn't just forget everything that had happened over one coffee meeting. When we got home that night, I found myself staring at that gift certificate. What do you think, Daniel? Is this a peace offering or another trap? Daniel examined it carefully. The hotel's legit. I just called them and confirmed the certificate is real and fully paid for. Still doesn't mean it's not part of some scheme, I muttered. We decided to hold on to it but not use it right away. Trust needed to be rebuilt slowly, if at all. I went back to my new job at a smaller marketing firm. The pay wasn't as good, but my coworkers were nice and my boss Riley was super understanding about my family situation. About 2 weeks after meeting with Jasmine, I got a text from Layla. I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity got the better of me. I hear you met with Jasmine. I want to meet too. No tricks. I showed Daniel, who immediately looked suspicious. What did Jasmine say about Layla? That she was somewhere in the middle, knew they were wrong but wasn't ready to admit it. We debated for days about whether I should meet her. Finally, I decided to give her a chance, but with conditions. We'd meet in the same public cafe. Daniel would be with me again, and this time, we'd arrive early and sit facing the door. When Layla walked in, she looked different too, less put together than usual. Her hair was in a simple ponytail instead of her usual elaborate style. She spotted us and came over hesitantly. Thanks for agreeing to see me, she said, sitting down. I nodded but didn't say anything. Daniel cleared his throat in the awkward silence. Layla fidgeted with her napkin. So, I've been thinking a lot about everything that happened. The therapist Mom and Dad found for us is pretty good. She's making us examine our behavior patterns. And? I prompted when she paused. And I realized I've been awful. To you, to Jasmine, even to Maya. I've been competing and sabotaging and lying for so long that it became normal. She looked up at me. I'm sorry, Aisha, for all of it. Her apology seemed genuine, but I remembered how convincing they all could be. What about the bank account thing? You were literally trying to steal from us. Layla winced. That was Maya's idea, but I went along with it. Rick isn't even a real person. It was Maya using a burner phone. We were desperate after you got the restraining orders. We thought if we could mess with your finances, you'd have to drop the charges. That's messed up, Daniel said flatly. I know. That's why I'm telling you now. Complete honesty, Layla insisted. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I just want a chance to prove I can change. I studied her face. What about Maya? Is she still plotting against us? Layla hesitated. Maya's complicated. She's angry at everyone right now. She blames me and Jasmine for getting caught, you for pressing charges, and our parents for taking your side. She moved out of the house last week. That was concerning. An isolated, angry Maya sounded dangerous. Has she talked about getting back at us? Not to me. We're not really speaking. Layla bit her lip. But I'd be careful if I were you. Maya always was the most stubborn. After our meeting with Layla, I felt cautiously optimistic. 2 out of 3 sisters showing remorse was progress. But Maya's radio silence worried me. Daniel and I stayed vigilant, regularly checking our accounts and keeping our security system armed. Then, about a month after meeting Layla, I ran into my dad at the grocery store. It was a complete coincidence. I was picking up ingredients for dinner, and there he was in the produce section, looking lost. Dad? I said, surprised to see him shopping alone. My mom usually did all the grocery shopping. He turned and his face lit up. Aisha, oh, it's good to see you. We stood there awkwardly for a moment before he asked if I had time for a coffee at the store's small cafe. I agreed, curious about what he wanted to say. Once we sat down, my dad looked at me seriously. Your mother and I have been doing a lot of reflecting. We failed you girls in many ways. I was shocked. My dad had never been the type to admit mistakes. We should have noticed the competition between you four and stopped it. Instead, we encouraged it without realizing. He stirred his coffee slowly. Did you know your mother and I both come from families where siblings barely speak to each other? We thought we were doing better by having you girls be involved in each other's lives. We never imagined it would become so toxic. It's not entirely your fault, Dad, I said, feeling a strange urge to comfort him despite everything. We made our own choices, but we set the stage. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you, Aisha. Not because you got married first or any nonsense like that. I'm proud of how you've handled this whole mess with dignity. I felt tears prick my eyes. This was all I'd ever wanted. My parents' approval that wasn't tied to some competition. How's Maya? I asked, changing the subject before I got too emotional in the middle of a grocery store. My dad's face fell. Not good. She refuses therapy, won't talk to your mother or me except to demand money. She lost her job last month. What happened? She showed up drunk to an important client meeting. When her boss called her out, she threw a stapler at him. That sounded like Maya, impulsive and violent when cornered. Is she getting help? We're trying, but she won't listen. He looked exhausted. Your mother and I are at our wits' end. I felt a mix of emotions, concern for my parents, fear of what Maya might do next, and a strange sort of relief that I wasn't responsible for fixing this. Just be careful, my dad warned. Maya's still very angry. She blames you for everything that's gone wrong in her life. After meeting my dad, I called Jasmine and Layla to warn them about Maya. We weren't exactly friends again, but we'd reached a point where we could communicate about serious issues. They both promised to keep an eye out and let me know if Maya contacted them with any concerning plans. A week later, Daniel and I finally decided to use Jasmine's gift certificate. We figured a weekend away would do us good after all the stress. The hotel was about 2 hours outside the city, nestled in the mountains with hiking trails and a spa. We arrived Friday evening and checked into our room, which was gorgeous. King bed, jacuzzi tub, balcony with mountain views. For the first time in months, I felt my guard start to come down. That night, we had dinner at the hotel restaurant, and then relaxed in the hot tub on our balcony. I was just starting to think maybe we could put all the drama behind us when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Enjoying your stay? The mountains are so peaceful this time of year. My blood ran cold. I showed Daniel the text. It could be the hotel, he said, but he didn't sound convinced. I called the front desk. Has anyone asked about our room or our stay recently? No, ma'am, the receptionist replied. Is something wrong? I hung up and tried to calm my racing heart. It has to be Maya, but how did she know we're here? The gift certificate, Daniel realized. Jasmine must have told her about it. I immediately called Jasmine, who sounded genuinely shocked. I swear I didn't tell her, but I did leave the receipt on my coffee table when she stopped by last week. She might have seen it. Great, just great. Our romantic getaway was now potentially a trap. I texted back the unknown number. Who is this? The reply came quickly. Just a concerned sister wondering why you're using blood money to fund your vacation. Definitely Maya. I showed Daniel, who immediately started packing our bags. We're leaving. Now. Wait, I said, thinking it through. If we leave, she wins again. We'll be running scared forever. Aisha. She tracked us to a hotel 2 hours away from home. This isn't about winning. It's about safety. I knew he was right, but I was so tired of letting my sisters control my life. What if we call hotel security? Have them keep an eye out for her? Daniel reluctantly agreed, and we spoke to the night manager, explaining the situation without all the crazy details. He promised to alert security and have them patrol our floor regularly. We tried to salvage our evening, but the relaxed mood was gone. Every noise in the hallway made us jump. Around midnight, we finally fell into an uneasy sleep. I woke to the sound of our hotel door opening. For a second, I thought I was dreaming. Then I saw a figure silhouetted in the doorway. Daniel was still asleep beside me. I reached over and shook him awake as the figure stepped into our room. Maya? I whispered, recognizing her petite frame. She flicked on the light, making us both wince. Surprise, she said flatly. Daniel sat up. How did you get in here? Told the front desk I was your sister and had lost my key. She shrugged, which is technically true. I noticed she was holding something behind her back. My heart raced. What do you want, Maya? Just to talk. She pulled out what she was hiding, a bottle of expensive champagne, and maybe celebrate. Daniel and I exchanged confused glances. This wasn't what we expected. Maya set the champagne down and sat in the chair by the window. Don't worry, it's not poisoned. I'm not actually insane, despite what everyone seems to think. Breaking into our hotel room in the middle of the night seems pretty insane, Daniel pointed out. Maya ignored him, focusing on me. I got a job offer, in London. I start next month. I blinked, trying to process this information. That's good? It's great, actually. Away from all of you and your drama. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. But before I go, I wanted to clear the air. I sat up fully, pulling the covers around me. I'm listening. I was jealous of you, Maya said bluntly. Always have been. You're the baby of the family, everyone's favorite. You got away with everything while we had to follow all the rules. I started to protest, but she held up her hand. Let me finish. When you got engaged, it was like the final proof that you were better than all of us. Daniel loved you enough to marry you, while none of us could even keep a boyfriend longer than a few months. Daniel shifted uncomfortably beside me. Maya continued. So yes, I tried to ruin your wedding. I tried to get you fired. I suggested we break into your apartment. I wanted to hurt you like I felt hurt. Her honesty was startling. And now? I asked cautiously. Now I'm tired. She sighed. Therapy isn't my thing, but distance might be. London is far enough that maybe I can stop comparing myself to you three and figure out who I am without the competition. I didn't know what to say. This wasn't an apology exactly, but it was more self-awareness than I'd ever seen from Maya. I don't expect forgiveness, she continued, but I wanted you to know I'm done with the revenge plots. It's exhausting and pointless. Daniel still looked suspicious. Why should we believe you? Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out out her phone. She opened an app and showed us the screen. It was a flight confirmation to London, dated 2 weeks from now. I'm really leaving. One-way ticket. She stood up. That's all I wanted to say. Enjoy your champagne. It's actually really good. She walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I am sorry about the brick. That was taking things too far. And then she was gone, leaving Daniel and I staring at each other in confusion, and the champagne sitting unopened on the table. We didn't sleep much after Maya's visit. In the morning, we debated whether to cut our trip short, but ultimately decided to stay. Maya's strange midnight confession seemed genuine, and honestly, I was tired of letting my sisters ruin things for us. The rest of the weekend actually turned out nice. We hiked, got couples massages, and even opened Maya's champagne, after Daniel insisted on buying a testing kit from a nearby pharmacy, just to be safe. It was fine. When we returned home, I had messages from both Jasmine and Layla. They'd heard from our parents that Maya was moving to London and wanted to know if I knew anything about it. I told them about her surprise hotel visit. That sounds like Maya, Jasmine said when I called her. Dramatic entrance, cryptic conversation, mysterious exit. Do you think she's really done with all the revenge stuff? I asked. I hope so, for all our sakes. Over the next 2 weeks, things settled into a new normal. I met with my parents for dinner once without my sisters. It was awkward but nice. My dad asked about Daniel's work, and my mom showed genuine interest in my new job. No one mentioned marriage or competition, or which daughter was doing what. Maya left for London without any more dramatic gestures. According to our parents, she seemed excited about her fresh start. Jasmine started dating again, a nice guy named Charles who seemed completely unaware of our family drama. Layla went back to school to finish her degree. As for Daniel and me, we decided to move. Not because we were scared anymore, but because we wanted a fresh start too. We found a cute house in a neighborhood across town, with a small yard for the dog we'd been talking about adopting. On moving day, I was surprised to see Jasmine and Layla show up with coffee and donuts. Need any help? Jasmine asked tentatively. Daniel looked at me, leaving the decision up to me. I hesitated, then nodded. Sure, there are some boxes in the kitchen that need to go out to the truck. We worked together for a few hours, an awkward but functional team. During a break, Layla sat next to me on the front steps of our old apartment. I like the new place, she said. It suits you too. Thanks. I sipped my coffee. It's weird, isn't it? All of us being normal. She laughed. Super weird, but kind of nice too. It wasn't perfect. I still had moments of doubt, still checked over my shoulder sometimes. The restraining orders were still technically in effect, though I hadn't mentioned that when they offered to help. Trust would take time to rebuild. But as I watched Daniel joking with Jasmine about how many books I owned while loading them into the truck, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not just for my marriage or my career, but for my family. That night, in our new house surrounded by boxes, Daniel and I toasted with the last of Maya's champagne. To new beginnings, he said, and to winning the only competition that matters, I added. Finding happiness on our own terms. I still didn't trust my sisters entirely. Maybe I never would, but I was done letting their issues define my life. I'd won by refusing to play their game, and that was enough for me.